What's up, YouTube? It's your boy, Mizzy Miz, Cool Cat kind of YouTube representing the birds. Let me tell you something. First Take is basically the Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott show. I'm serious. I am so serious right now. You're going to see 2 videos of this BS. Okay? You're going to see 2 videos of it. Here's one of the videos right now.
Dan, thank you. On that note, we bring in our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky. Good morning, Dan. Thank you for being with us. I am starting with you for a change. Dan, tell me this. Who should be getting paid more, Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott? Both obviously came out of the same draft class.
This isn't even close to me. Carson Wentz should be getting paid more. There's a couple of reasons why. Number one of these players has been a runaway MVP candidate before injury, and that was Carson Wentz. Runaway MVP winner in that 2018 season, 2017 season, and then he gets the injury. He was having the second best sophomore season ever at that point, behind Dan Marino, and then the next year Patrick Mahomes did it. Number two, he's led his team to the playoffs the last 3 seasons. Led his team to the playoffs the last 3 seasons. 2 years ago, certainly Nick Foles comes in and kind of caps it off, but led his team to the playoffs the last 3 seasons. And this is what we do know. The bottom line between these 2 players. One guy has proven that he can carry a team when it's depleted with injuries, and one guy is proven that he's more reliant on people. We know what Dak Prescott has struggled with when a guy like Tyron Smith has not played, or when he didn't have Amari Cooper, or Travis Frederick hasn't played. Their performance drops off. Where we saw Carson Wentz last year, when everybody on that team was gone, consistently rise to the occasion and perform at a top level. Because that's what you have to ask yourself. When you're going to pay these guys the amount of money you're going to pay them, is that player good enough to overcome the 3 or 4 guys that we won't have on our team anymore because of the amount of money that we have to give them? Carson Wentz proved that last year, I'm good enough. And Dak Prescott hasn't proven that to this point in his career yet. So to me, it's Carson Wentz deserves more money.
Please, that's utterly ridiculous. I can't believe that nonsensical argument you just made. I'll give it to you that Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate when he went 11-2 in his 13 starts a few years ago before getting hurt, and Nick Foles led them to the Super Bowl. He had thrown 33 touchdowns, just 7 interceptions that year, even though he was only completing 60% of his passes, Dan. You didn't bring that up, but that's neither here nor there. The next year, you're going to sit up there with a straight face and say he led them to the playoffs? They were 5-6 in the 11 games he started. 5-6. And then Nick Foles came in and led them to the playoffs and ultimately to a playoff win over to Chicago. I know you said they came in, but you said he led them to the playoffs. That was patently false. They were 5-6 in the games he started. He goes down, and then Nick Foles came in and saved the day. And then they ultimately beat Chicago in the playoffs before losing to New Orleans. That's number 2. Number 3, Carson Wentz has 1 playoff appearance on his resume that we've seen him in. In that particular game, he completed 1 or 4 passes, or 1 or 3 passes for like 4 yards or something like that, because he got hurt that early.
Stephen A. of all people.
I know that Carson Wentz is a stud quarterback. I also recognize and appreciate what he was working against last year. Nelson Aguilar missed about 5 games.
Yep.
Alshon Jeffrey missed about 6 games.
Yep.
Deshaun Jackson missed about 13 games.
Yep.
I get it. I totally understand it. I'm not trying to knock Carson Wentz's abilities and capabilities in any way. But I also have to lean on your level of production or what is lacking and the reasons why. Obviously, it was because of injury. We get all of that. But they happened. And the fact that they happened and the fact that you weren't there to be available, and Dak Prescott didn't have that problem. Plus, Dak Prescott has a better winning record as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Carson Wentz is about 32-24. I think Dak is about 38-24, whatever it is. Yes, he has Ezekiel Elliott and Amari Cooper. We get all of that. But there's something to be said about him. Him being reliable, him being dependable, him being that leader. And the Dan Orlovsky that I know is a guy that doesn't just focus on your abilities. he also focuses on all of those intangibles. That's why you're so hardcore. Guys make a mistake. You don't want to give second chances. You're ready to ban them from the league and all of this other stuff because you talk about availability and accountability just as much as you talk about ability. And Dak Prescott has been those things for the Dallas Cowboys. He might produce in a different fashion than Carson Wentz does, but in the end, he still produces. His numbers are comparable. Plus, he's more reliable, more dependable because he's more durable. And I think that alone should make sure he gets paid at least as much as Carson Wentz gets paid. That's where I'm at with it.
So it is left to me to decide. I am the tiebreaker. Dan Orlovsky, you
Not
are
really. It's
the
just your
most
turn to talk.
TV-friendly, best breaking down football plays on video, making them accessible to fans, the whole thing since Gruden. I love when you're doing that, and you're the biggest Carson Wentz booster in the world. And yet your argument for him is so weak. You're right, but you make the wrong argument. Stephen A., you're wrong. Dan is right, but his argument's wrong. Dan, he did not lead the Eagles to the playoffs all those times, as Stephen A. pointed out. He had a losing record. Foles took over, played him into the playoffs, won a playoff game, on the road, almost won another one on the road. Wentz hasn't done that. Last year, when Wentz played them into the playoffs, playing better than, a replacement level guy probably would have played. In fact, he was outplayed versus all those awful NFC East teams by all the other NFC East quarterbacks. If he beat Washington, the Giants would beat them, and their every time Daniel Jones, whoever, would look better than Wentz beating some awful team. Wentz had a very overrated season last year. Nevertheless, Stephen A., Dan is right about this. We've seen Wentz hit heights that Dak has never reached. He just hasn't. And last year, Dak was fully loaded. He did not have a coach, and that makes a big deal, the big difference, but fully loaded, missed the playoffs. And Wentz had a depleted team with a much better coach. He made the playoffs. It is actually much closer, Dan, than it should be. This should be runaway Wentz because his ceiling is so much higher. But actually, it's very close. Dak, the fact that he doesn't miss games, the fact that he's been consistent, all those things, and the fact that, by the way, he's put up numbers, has put Dak in a position where he's nipping at Carson Wentz's heels in a way he shouldn't be. Nevertheless, Stephen A., Wentz is ahead of Dak. He's performed at an MVP level in the past, and his team made the playoffs last year.
Well, Dan, I'll give you the last word, but let me say this about Max Kellerman. First of all, you can never be a judge. A judge is concise, a judge is decisive, and they're clear in their decisions, which you never are. So you'd never be a judge. That's number one. Number two, what is my point? You sat up there and said I was wrong, but then started off your statement, your soliloquy, by saying, Stephen A., you were right. Okay, then you sit up there and you say, Dan, you were right, but with the wrong argument. Nobody understands what the hell you're saying. Back to you, Dan. In the end, what it comes down to is this. I am in no way saying that Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz are the same guys. What I'm saying is they come to similar results in a different fashion that does not dilute Dak Prescott's value, and that's why I think he deserves to get paid at least the same.
I could put it clearly like this. One of these players last year had reasons to make excuses and an opportunity to overcome them. And they did. That's Carson Wentz. He had plenty of reasons to find excuses for lack of success. Yet he used it as an opportunity to rise above and prove his worth to his team. And he did that. And Dak Prescott had the same situation, guys. I'll go back to the Jets game. When they go on the road and they're beat up and he's beat up, and they're missing Tyron Smith, and they go out and lose. And everyone wanted to caveat it with, well, he was missing his offensive lineman. There's the bottom line, because, Stephen A., to your guys' point, like, the availability is a valid thing. I can't argue that. But at the end of the day, when these decisions are made by organizations, if we pay that person all that money, can we afford to not have this player or that player or that player? Is he good enough? And one guy has proven, I can carry you. And one guy has proven, I need help. That is as black and white as it needs to be.